Hi, my name's Bronwyn Jane, and I'm the founder of the Psychic Mediumship College. And I'm super excited today to introduce a new friend of mine. If you haven't met me before, I bridge the gap between neuroscience and quantum energy through structured education, taking the woo-woo out of the woo-woo world to make it really normal for everyone. And as part of doing that, I come across really interesting people. And most of the time, they just pass through my world and they don't stop. But not that long ago, I was fortunate enough that the person that you can see on screen booked a reading with me, and that was something really special that occurred in that reading. And as I was doing the reading, I knew that people needed to know about Emmanuel. And so, unlike what I normally do, I don't normally do these type of things, but it was like, no, we're going to spend some time, connect, and I want Emmanuel to share who he is so you can feel his energy and understand why I just had to do this. So, welcome, Emmanuel, to our little chat. I'd love for you to tell me a little bit more about you, share who you are, and what you do.
Thank you, Bronwyn, and it's a pleasure to be here with you this morning. So my name is Emmanuel. I'm from France. I've been in Australia for 12 years now. I was born in Africa, in Ivory Coast, and I grew up in the southwest of France. Throughout my life, I'm coming from parents that are what we call, or who we call, globetrotters. So I spent most of my life traveling. When I came back from Africa to France, I've spent years traveling in a caravan between Spain, Portugal, and Morocco. Um, when I was 9 years old, my parents sold their business and they bought a little tiny sailing boat. And my little brother, my mother, my father, and I went to cross the Atlantic Ocean for about a year. So we were homeschooled. We got back from this trip and I was 10 years old. Then my parents still wanted to do some more travels. And not long after that, 4 years later, they bought another boat in Turkey and we went for 2 years to live on the ocean. And at that time, I had my little sister that just came up to the world, who was 3 months old. So she started her, very young life living on a boat, and that was, absolutely fantastic. So from a very young age, I was exposed to a lot of different cultures, and I've been also very good at learning languages. Being very young, when I was 9 years old on a boat, I had to speak English and Spanish with most people. So that became two of the languages that I was very good at. And then when I went on that second trip, I lived in Turkey for nearly a year, so I spoke Turkish, and we went in Greece, so I learned a little bit of Greek, and we went in Italy as well, so I learned a bit of Italian. And then throughout this, beautiful youth that I had, thanks to my parents, um, I kind of wanted to get back into the normal world, how we call it, because I was always homeschooled. I was never with my friends. So I went and did a business school, just because I thought that would help me in the future. So I went in Bordeaux and I did a master in international trade and marketing. But before going into that, I'd like to say that when I was 10 years old, something shifted that made an incredible change in my life. Is that my parents discovered a meditation called Vipassana, which is essentially a technique that was taught by Buddha 2,500 years ago, where you go for 10 days and meditate by yourself, man, woman separated, and it's in silence. And so when my parents started to do this type of meditation, it completely changed their life, and obviously it changed our life as well. So, from the age of 10, 11 years old, we didn't have TV at home anymore. We had to read and, play music. And of course, we didn't have any meat as well. So I was exposed to meditation when I was 10 years old. So it was, I was a very, very different kid from the kids that you see normally. And I never had like really stable friends because we were always traveling. And then, I wanted to do this business school afterwards to have a little bit of, kind of like some grounding, and also having, a master that will help me to, do some, get some proper job in the future. So I moved to Australia in 2013 on the 14th of February. And I've been here for 12 years now, just a bit over 12 years. I created a company, a trading company called EGDC Trading, which stands for Express Global Distribution Center. And what I've been doing is buying from Australia and buying from China and exporting to New Caledonia and Vanuatu and some of the Pacific Islands over there. So I've been running a $1 million business company since 2019 now. And it was always a goal of mine to be successful with finances, but it was never my life purpose. So that's a little bit of my story, my story until here now, and talking together.
10 years old, being introduced to meditation, particularly a silent meditation, would have been an interesting experience. I don't know many 10-year-olds that could do that. It's all, they're all about action and noise and movement and this type of thing. So that would have been an interesting shift.
Look, when just to be clear, they don't offer 10 days for kids. It's only 3 days or 4 days courses, and you're allowed to talk, but you're meditating, most of the time in silence. But yeah, I did the 10 days later on when I was an adult. But yeah, it was sensational. It's been very helpful, and especially when it came to studying and passing exams or situation where there is anger, and being able to come back to the breath and coming back to myself and being centered and grounded, and what we call now nowadays that mindfulness meditation, being really aware of that. And I also went, when was that, in 2011. I went to spend a week in the Plum Village in Bordeaux, where Thich Nhat Hanh in French, Thich Nhat Hanh, was teaching over there. Because he's got two places. He's had asylum in the United States, in California, and in France as well, a little bit close to border. And he's got these beautiful monasteries where people can go and spend time with him. I was lucky enough to spend a week there as well, and learning what mindfulness meditation is, coming from his point of view. So I've had a very kind of like wide and open education regarding what meditation is and what mindfulness meditation is throughout my growth and becoming a man. But out of all of these, something sensational happened when I was probably about, I would say, 13 or 14 years old. There was this movie that came up called Living of Light that my parents went to see in the movies. And they came back telling me, "Oh, Emmanuel, we saw that movie where people don't need to eat and don't need to, some of them, drink anymore to survive. And they are in a fasted state. And they live for, a very long time, being the healthiest you've ever seen." And for some reasons, because I'm coming from this very open mind and open hearted family and education, when my parents told me this, it was like, oh, to me, this is just normal. I don't think that I would not think why a human wouldn't be able to do that. So I got really fascinated about that. And in my early 20s, I started to delve a little bit more in this topic. And that's when I came to, read some of the material from Jas Muhin in Australia, who's what we call a breatharian. That word is quite specific when you hear it the first time. So it's essentially living out of breath only, or just the breath is feeding you, all the energy that you need. And so in 2019 in Australia, I co-created, not by myself because I needed a team, but the first Breatharian Festival on the Sunshine Coast. And that was, an amazing event where I had breatharians that traveled the world to come and be here. I had the main organizer of the Breatharian World Festival, called Nicolas Pilatz, who organizes the Breatharian World Festival in Italy every year. He came with his wife. And so we were able to introduce, how these people live in such fashion, in such manner in Australia. So I did a lot of fasting myself, and I've spent up to 3 months just being on liquids. I spent 2 times 72 hours without food, without water. I did lose quite a lot of weight back in the time, but I delved into this study because I was like, how all the ascended masters that we've been studying and we've heard about, all of them go through very long and extended period of fast where they don't, some of them, drink water anymore. When we talk about Buddha, when we talk about Jesus as well, up to 40 days, without water. So I was like, how is it possible to achieve this? And But when you've spent, up to 3 months just being on liquids, and for myself, having spent twice 72 hours without food, without water, and being just fasted as well before that, just on water, you're like, it's incredible the potential of the human body, but as well what's happening within yourself, like inside, mentally, spiritually, physically, emotionally. Being fasted brings you so much light, so much power that comes from, this divine love that you breathe with every single breath. And yeah, I really wanted to share this with Australia and with the world. And there are incredible people. We have breatharian people that live for a very, very long time without food and without water. But you also got sun gazer, and sun gazer, what they do is they look at the sun directly in the eyes, and the sun rays go through the iris and charge the pineal gland, and allows them over a certain period of practice not to eat and not to drink it, not to eat anymore. There is a famous guy in India that I was in contact with. Is the acronym of his name is HRM, the sun gazer, and he was studied by NASA for doing about 355 days without food. And they were looking at how they could send people on the moon and then not feeding them. And so that's why they were very interested in studying HRM. And I spent quite a lot of time talking with HRM as well. I went into sun gazing myself, and I still have my diary here for all the time that I've been watching the sun into the eyes through the iris, sometimes up to 35 minutes in the morning or 35 minutes at night during sunset, because you can only do this in the morning or at night time, otherwise it will burn your eyes. So you got to
That's
be
right.
very cautious about that. But
Yeah,
same thing, it's
I
another.
actually say to
Sorry.
I say to my students, I use the three fingers like as a when it gets above here on the horizon, stop, right?
That's right.
We stop, and for exactly what you're saying, that the impact. Well, one, obviously, it helps with sleep, but it also is that if you're seeking to be more enlightened or more connected in that spiritual way, it's definitely sort of like get up and get as soon as that sun comes up or as it's coming up, be out there and expose yourself to it. The myths and stories around the sun being dangerous for us, they really are myths and stories. Uh, they really are, and we have to, as people on an awakening journey, even contemplate were we told these things, particularly when we know that it, makes us more aware. It has all these positive effects on us with our pineal gland. There's a motive there for it, and we've gone along with it. But as awakening people, we should question. That's the whole point of it. So, and when you were talking about the fasting, true, like the human body, if you are ill, starve it from the things that are feeding the disease, and it will reset. It's what it's designed to do. So if you have the water, fasting and being on water or similar, the body gets to do what it's supposed to do, which is reset without being influenced by the poison that we take in.
That's right. That's right. And what I wanted to add as well regarding the sun is that so the practice works with doing 10 seconds per day and adding 10 seconds to 10 seconds to 10 seconds. And after 3 months of practice, essentially, you will completely heal your eyes. So there are people that have gone through this practice that wanted to get into the army to be jet pilots, and they were not able because of eye impairments. And so they will go through HRM, and he told me this firsthand. And then they will do the practice for up to 3 months. It's cumulative, huh? So it's not going to be 3 months straight. Might be over a year. You'll have this 3 months of cumulated 10 seconds, which leads something to 3 minutes, something like that, per day that you got to watch. And then they will go back to do their military test, eye test, and they will come back having 5 out of 5 or 10 out of 10 on each eye. And so that was sensational. I had my mom coming. That was probably about 6 or 7 years ago, and she's wearing glasses to read her books at night. And she started to do some sun gazing with me for a couple of weeks. And then after the second week, she was like, "Oh, I don't need to use my glasses anymore when I'm reading at night. Like I feel my eyes are much sharper than what they were before." So, it's definitely healing the eyes. But if you look at, our society at the moment, there is a big push that's been about being protected from the sun, and a lot of people wear sunglasses. And somehow, some people have said that a lot of rise of cancer are linked with wearing glasses, because those UV lights that we're getting through the sun, through our eyes, are actually excellent for our health. And they are fighting against cancer. Whereas if you do keep sunglasses on and not get that sunlight in, you're more likely to get, some cases of cancer as well. So, for example, myself, I haven't worn any sunglasses since more than 7 years. Like, I do know about these, and since then I was like, okay. And I got very bright eyes. So when I'm going onto the beach, there is this big reverberation, and white sand reflected on the sun, with the sun. It was very hard growing up. I would always put sunglasses on. But since I'm aware of this now, I'm completely fine. I can go anywhere. My eyes are really sharp eyes, and the brightness doesn't bother me anymore. So, yeah, it's very interesting, and I do recommend anyone to go and have a look at HRM on the internet, because he's probably the main person, the pioneer, and the reference regarding sun gazing. And for breatharianism, people should go on breatharianworld.com and have a look at the thousands of people that are now breatharians that are interviewed, that you have a lot of material to study from all around the world. I was just hearing the other day about this Russian fruitarian that's now being very, very famous because he spent months without food and without water as well, but it still eats fruits. And so the way that it works through the different stages of diet, it's like we say that we are omnivores, so we can eat everything. Then you move to the stage of being a vegetarian, and then from the stage of being a vegetarian you become a vegan, and then from becoming a vegan you become a raw vegan, so you just eat raw food. And then from moving to raw food you move to what we call liquids. You move to fruits, so you got the fruitarian stage, and then from fruit you move to monofruits, and then from monofruit generally you move to liquids, and liquids are going to be juices and all of that. But then you reach the next stage, which is called inedia. So inedia is when you can just drink water and still being the healthiest you've ever been, and that is a stage that you attain when you've spent 90 days just drinking water, and you've gained back weight, you look good, your skin becomes elastic again, your hair is growing very well. And for all the people I've been studying, because I've not been in this advanced age, that are doing some fasting in their 40, 50, 60s, suddenly they become back like young as much as they were like 20 years ago. And it's you can see it in their eyes, in the sharpness of their eyes, and the elasticity of the skin, their hair's growing, and there is some brightness coming from within. And that's so that's going to lead us to the next point, which is a very interesting energy, that energy that is known from all ancient cultures since the dawn of time. And we call that energy Chi, or Prana in India,
Yeah.
Chi in China, Ki in Japan, Mana in Melanesia. It has like all sorts of names throughout all times. And so when I did all the studies about breatharianism, I was like, well, how is it possible that you can live and you do not have any calories? Like, how is that possible? And so, of course, in the word breath, there is air. In the word air, there is energy for us. And if you look at us as kids, the first thing that we do when we come out from our mommy's tummy, we breathe air. That's the first thing that we do. We don't have food, or we'll have milk afterwards, but that's the first stage. So in the air that is around us, there is this energy that we call chi, or life force, that we call it, more in the Western world. And I delved into this science there, because it's like, there must be more behind it. Like, who has been studying this? And you go into your TCM, traditional Chinese medicine, and that's where you see all those people that have been studying for thousands of years this energy, and you go like, wow, that's incredible. And so that's when I went into Tai Chi. I went into Qigong. And I was like, okay, so you get this, you have more energy into your body, people live younger, longer, and still look very young. And then I was like, whoa, that's incredible. But then I was like, oh, there are some masters that have mastered this energy in a way that they can show skills that are coming out of the extraordinary. And I looked into that and I was very curious. I was like, hold on, how is it possible that a man that has accumulated so much energy into his body is able to heal other people by sending his own energy onto other people? And this energy is called Chi. And so that's when I discovered a fantastic and pioneer master called Robert Peng. And Robert Peng is incredible. He's from Vietnam. He's got a very beautiful story on how he became who he is thanks to his master. But he was a kid with difficult health issues. And one master one day saw him and kind of put him to the test. And, he responded positive to the test. And then he took him under his wing and he went to do some fasting. So he went into a cave and he spent 40 days in a cave just drinking water and being in darkness. And when he came out from that cave, he's explaining that, he could see people's energetic field, some reasons he could, when he was bringing his hands towards someone, like his energy will go and like kind of like send a bit of electricity to these people. And so Robert Peng became Bob Hawke's Australian Prime Minister doctor for many years. And you can see videos on YouTube where you see Bob Hawke being healed by Robert Peng, and Bob Hawke is with his wife as well, and Robert is sending chi energy into Bob Hawke's body and throughout his wife as well. So you see like these people that have such kind of skills, and we call them zapper. Zapper means being able to send out this chi energy in a very concentrated way to be able to go through people's meridian points. And it's essentially the acupuncturist, the meridian acupuncture, that's what they use. And they're able to unlock certain places, certain energetic field into the body of people. So I was fascinated by that, and I started to study from Robert Peng. And then I was like, wow, incredible. So I delved into more research, and that's when I discovered someone called John Chang in Indonesia. And John Chang is someone that was discovered by Lawrence Blair. Lawrence Blair is an anthropologist, and he did a series called The Ring of Fire in the 1980s. He went with his brother on a boat to record all the tribes that live on the Ring of Fire through Indonesia, Java, and all that. And he made this series that went on BBC News, probably about like mid 80s, late 80s. And one day his brother had an eye issue. They were in Java and they were looking for a doctor. And of course, back in the time, modern hospital didn't exist there. So they were recommended to go and see this healer. And that healer was able to send, in the same way that Robert Peng did, energy through his body to another person. And when Lawrence Blair saw this with his brother, they were like blown away, like, who is that man? And so that's how John Chang became famous, because we can see him on videos doing incredible things, such as putting a newspaper on fire, and everyone's like, oh, this is impossible how he does this. It's actually just science-based. He's able to shot himself with a bullet from a rifle into his hand, and the chi energy in his hand just protects his hand, and the bullet just literally just come down, ripple. So he's an incredible man, and there are a lot of material about him. And the technique that he was studying himself is called Mopai. So it's a from Chinese lineage, and it's a very precise internal art where you bring in more energy. So I was fascinated about that, and I read books. I actually went through three different person that really spent close time with him. There is an American man called Jim Macmillan. There is a Greek guy who wrote a book called The Magus of Java. And then there is an Australian guy as well, but I can't remember his name. But these people, they were martial artists, working with internal energy, with chi, and they dropped everything that was happening in their life, and they went to Java to meet with John Chang. And his other name is also Dynamo Jack, by the way. And so they were lucky enough to be among the ones that were able to get some one-on-one training with John Chang, and then they read their books, and so I went to Indonesia to meet with Lawrence Blair, and it was awesome. I interviewed him, I spent a lot of time with him, and he was telling us about all those incredible skills that John Chang was demonstrating, and I was like, okay, so I want to learn as well. And I studied to become, a student of this Mopai lineage. And I did some training for about 2 years. but that training was very, very restrictive. You had to be very disciplined, and it was very, very restrictive. And a lot of people that do not do it correctly end up having some issues at some point with energy blocked in some places into their bodies. And that could be detrimental to them if they don't have the right teacher or the right structure around them to learn. And so that's when I stopped and I was like, look, it's definitely fantastic, but I got to find another teacher. And so that's when I discovered in the United States this school called Chi Energy Heals. And that's led by a master called Shifu Jones. He's a white guy, an American guy. His story is that he's ex-military. He's the son of a quantum physicist. And he went to Japan and he met a master who was also, showing these incredible skills. And through the knowledge from his father as a quantum physicist, his knowledge of being a martial artist and the knowledge from that Japanese master is put a curriculum over 4 years where you learn more about, chi energy, how it works, how to heal yourself, how to heal others. You learn basic things such as telekinesis, turning a psi wheel. I can do all of these things now. So it was really, really fantastic for me to learn from him. It's been great. And there is a lot of science behind, a lot of
There,
quantum science,
there
which
is.
was,
And in that, there's a couple of things. One, now I'm like, I know why I was drawn to you because I don't wear sunglasses for the same reason. Right. So it's like, yeah, my things. The and for those that are going to watch this and if they're in a reading space, the things that you're saying resonate in that space, even over and above a healing space. Because I know when you have a clear vessel, energy flows through you. Uh, it doesn't get sort of stuck, and there's a whole lot of things. And when we do readings, it's all about how the energy moves through our body and then things that happen in our brain. So there's a whole science around that. People think it's woo-woo, it's not. There's all this biology. And so going through a fasting process, and I haven't done 40 days, but I understand three. Uh, that's as good as I've got. But I also understand the process to get from three, which is the hard part, then, and what happens in the emotional space as you're kind of letting go of the psychology that you think you need to eat. All right. And so it is that resetting what you think needs to happen and what you think your body needs to. But through that process, the great realization of that the clearer the vessel, the clearer the information. And so for those that are in a reading space to be really aware of what they put into their body and how they look after it, because it is a big part of the process. But those too that in the healing, so I don't do it a great deal, I'm going to say commercially, healing the physical by understanding energy, but I do it, right? Um, and that once again, if your energy is at its highest, the higher frequency that it can be, it's got the momentum, and we're tapping into the right energy, anything is kind of possible. Like it really is. And what we think, as you said, the basics of being able to move something without touching it, people think, oh, that's awesome. And it is, right? But compared to everything else that can be done, it is elementary.
it is, yeah.
And it is really understanding on that quantum level, which is my favorite space to be. All my students know that. I'm forever going on about it. It's like start looking at the world from the quantum space. Look at it there, and then everything changes. Stop looking at it. It's like what you think this is. It's not what you think it is. And then once you start to move through life with that awareness of looking at it in that from a quantum space, then as I said, anything is possible. So I can understand the passion that you have within you when you share your story, and it's palpable. What I want to ask you a question in that, because the passion is palpable. What keeps you connected to it? Because you've invested what sounds like decades, right? You've really since you were 10, right? When your world changed. So what keeps you connected to your passion?
Look, that's coming from, I would say, growing up, one, first of all, being open-minded and open-hearted, but I've had two enlightening experiences in my life. One that I was an out of body experience, and another one that happened through the dream state. And what keeps me connected to that is I know within myself, in my heart, that everything is possible and everything is connected. And to me, that energy, the vessel that we are, that quantum world, all of this is connected together. And essentially that's why I'm putting all this work within myself and sharing it with others, because I know not only in my heart but also mentally, scientifically, quantumly, that everything is connected through that. And I am just a vessel. I'm connected to this, and I'm here to experience this, in the best way. I know that this the power of this chi energy is incredible. It is incredible. That energy is also harvested by, can be harvested by certain technologies, and be used to be transformed for, different type of machines and things like that. But also for ourselves, it is incredible the power that it has for us to be aligned with who we are as spiritual beings, living this material, physical experience here in this life or in this incarnation. So I would say that's what keeps me connected to it. And of course, the health, there is nothing better than waking up, being happy, and feeling that your body is healthy, and knowing that everything is connected, like that makes you feel so small, like a piece of dust in this universe. But at the same time, you're just part of this rich tapestry, and we are all one. We are all connected through
Yeah.
that. One of the person that has really fascinated me, throughout all this research is Nassim Haramein. And he's a quantum physicist, and he's an ex-breatharian as well. So you'll find him on breatharianworld.com, and he's got a lot of interviews where he shares how he got to be in this fasted state for a very long time. And the way that he got through that was actually through the yoga of the tongue, and through putting the tongue behind the throat. It's called Keshari Mudra. It's in India, and you stimulate what we call the Amrit, or the drop from your pineal gland, which is called the nectar of the god. And he was practicing this, and then he spent a lot of time being fasted. We're talking, months and months and months without food, without water sometimes. And he explains very well how this quantum world that we live in is connected through black holes. And
Yeah.
he's a very, very interesting person that I've still looked at all his work, and he's currently working on great things that are going to bring, hopefully, free energy for the planet, extracting antimatter from black holes. Yeah, it's a very fascinating topic.
It's it is like hence with the conversation. What's what do you think is the biggest misunderstanding that you've come across when you've been sharing sort of what you know with people about whether it be fasting, whether it be about chi energy? What's the biggest misunderstanding do you think people have?
Look, I don't know if I can qualify it as being a misunderstanding. I think that the problem comes from having an open heart and an open mind. People that are connecting to these new ideas, which are not new but new for them, generally are very close-minded, very Cartesian, and it's hard for them to accept that such kind of thing are real. So I would say that the biggest problem for me when I share about these things is people close themselves up. It's too much for them to realize that it is possible, and that will literally change their reality in such a way that will be so drastic that they'd rather not move forward towards that path, because everything that they've been told and known before will have to change somehow. So that's why I say that people that come with an open heart and an open mind, like I am with my education, and the way that I am naturally anyway, it's easier for us to go through that. So I would say that the misunderstanding is coming from an issue with education. If these things were taught to us at an early stage throughout, the families, or, potentially in the future, hopefully through the educational system as being, realities, then that will create a massive shift on our planet for sure throughout consciousness. Yeah.
Uh, it is, it is that programming that occurs when we're younger from society and family and community that then we think it's our truth. And it starts as very simple as, our meals, where we think we have to have three. Or sometimes we have snacks in between that. Whereas, no, you don't. Uh, and it is just knowing that you can lean into it. And yes, it'll take you a little while. It might be a little bit uncomfortable initially, like for a couple of days or whatever, but then it stops being that. And you get to experience consciousness and what's available from a whole different vantage point when you are not focusing on, I'm going to call it a whole lot of things, like, even eating. What shifts in your body you don't really appreciate, the information that you can access when you are clear. And we don't necessarily even think about what we put into our body. We get one, right? But you would think that we get many the way we treat it, but we get one. And quite often we loathe it too sometimes, but we don't acknowledge that all it is a depository of your history. That's what it is.
Mhm.
Um, and I think also when I asked you that question and you were answering it, the other thing that came to mind was, and we saw it, a couple of years ago with everything that happened in our globe, the realization that what you thought was your truth is not your truth now. And what happens is foundations get shook. People's foundations of what they built their life on or their belief systems on. And that's really hard. And so those that are brave enough look up. That's what I was saying. Like those that are brave enough is like looking up. It's like looking, don't look at your phone. Like you've actually looked up and experienced your world. And those that are not ready, keep looking down
Mhm.
because they're not ready because it's easier to look down. To stay in what feels comfortable because you don't want to be uncomfortable and grow, that's easier. Growth is uncomfortable. So you've got to get used to being uncomfortable if you want to grow. And if you can't say, I want to grow and then do nothing about it, it's not going to happen for you, whoever you are. Like it's just not. And so, same like if you have frustrations, like things aren't kind of happening exactly how I want to. It's like get excited about frustration because it tells you a breakthrough is about to happen because it always happens just after the frustration. So we're in this space, which is really awesome because there's a whole lot of people are going to look up again. New people that are going to go, like what happened a few years ago. And that's really exciting.
Mm. Yeah, we're up to some incredible changes at the moment, and I've done thousands of hours of life coaching through the Landmark Education and the Life Coaching Academy, which I'm certified as a life coach. There is one thing that we learn as a basic through human nature is that we tend to say, "I'm right, you're wrong," and getting out of our comfort zone is something that is difficult, but that's it. It's the only place where change is happening, getting out of your comfort zone. And that's when breakthrough happens. You go through breakdowns, but you have to go through breakthrough after getting out of your comfort zone. So I would encourage, of course, anyone to get out of their comfort zone, but the people like you and me and all those truth seekers that are kind of stepping away from the normal way that we've been told things, where we're here to change or agitate the consciousness of others
Yeah.
because it is needed. And the place where we're all heading to in this very close future is amazing. It is amazing, and it's a world where I like to say everything is possible. It's not that I only like, is I know, I believe inside my heart that everything is possible. But to get through that, we got to have this open mind and this open heart, and we got to get out of our comfort zone and go through this breakdown to be able to reach the breakthrough. And the breakthrough, somewhere, somehow, we can also call it an enlightenment, you know. And we're going back to the word light, you know, and the word light is the light that is surrounding us, the light that is within.
Mm.
It's also the light that we breathe in, you know, through the breatharianism. Um, a lot of people are like, well, how breatharian are able to live and not eat a pizza or not eat cheese or not eat these things, you know? Well, we call it the breath of light, but it's also called the breath of love. Because when you breathe it in and you're so connected to the air, the way that you feel is so good. You feel so content, so filled from the inside that you do not need anything from the outside to feel what's happening inside. And that's the beauty of it.
And I have a point of reference for that too, because when I think about a spiritual journey, which is the way I would describe exactly what you've done, but it's around a different theme. For me, it's that like when I teach people, or even in a reading space, but predominantly if I'm teaching someone, they will come to me for this technical skills. Like that's generally why they arrive on my doorstep, for the technical skills. But the magic that they don't expect, I call it's like the bonus gift, gift with purchase. The bonus gift is that this they connect back into who they are. They remember who they are rather than the labels and everything that's been projected on them through life. And so they connect back in and remember. And sometimes their consciousness might change. There's a bit more of a remembering of their consciousness because we all have the same consciousness. It's just we remember it at different rates and this type of thing. So, but the reason why I do what I do is because that when you peace that you feel, the serenity that just fills every cell that you have when you fully embody one who you are, but also this spiritual aspect of you, it's it's addictive in a way because it feels so awesome. It's like, oh my God, this is like better than any, substance that you could take. And it's just, and all you've done is connect to who you are. And we're so disconnected, some of us. And it's like, and it makes me really sad if I think about it, that it's like how many people that are just kind of going through life and they're not enjoying it. And it's because they're disconnected from themselves. And as I always think of, part of the purpose of incarnating now is yes, to do what I do and what I've created and all the things, but it's also to show people, lead people, guide people, whatever the person needs, so they can come back to home, which is in here. So it's like, I just want you to feel what I feel. It's like, I just want to give you that however I can give that to you. Um, and I wish I could give it to everyone, but it's like, that's what it's just like awesome. Guys, you need to feel this. It's fabulous. And I get the feedback often from students and they're like, oh my God, like this just feels like so great. I go, yeah, I know, I told you. It's great, isn't it? So it's a different way of getting there, but the energy and what it feels like sounds the same type of experience.
Mm. Yeah, well, we kind of always seek out what's missing, and most of the time, people like you and me that have had those enlightening experiences, we've realized that we always had all the answers within already. So we just have to connect back to ourselves. I remember my first out of body experience that was in 2009 in 2010 in Poland, in Poznan, and I literally went out of my body and went through out the planet, and I went through different layers of, I could see them as filters of knowledge, and a lot of things were included in that throughout, hidden histories and spirits and consciousness of the planet Earth. And I went into this beautiful place, and it was void. It was beautiful, but it was a void. And in that void, I felt like I was home and I felt so good. And then I understood and felt within the deepest part of my heart that everything was connected and everything was possible throughout those connections. And when I came back into my body, it was like a sudden clap. Like I came back like this. It was the middle of the night. I literally could nearly not sleep for probably about 2 months after that, because that power, that energy I had in me was so strong and so incredible. My parents freaked out. Like my friends freaked out. They were like, you turn insane. I was like, no, no, I know everything is possible. And everything changed my life at that time. I became really good at what I was doing, and I knew that I just had to put the effort in anything that I wanted and I'll be good at it, because everything is possible. Once you've lived this and you know that deep in your heart, then you're like, well, bringing down life, I'm just so happy to be here every day. And I know that everything is possible. And we are creators of this world. And the way that it works is through our consciousness. And that's probably one of the reasons humans have been so much blindfolded or intentionally blindfolded, is because our consciousness is so powerful in terms of what we can do in this quantum world. The more of us think and feel for peace, the more peace will happen. The more of us are divided and think about war, the more war will be happening. And so there is a little bit of a back control somewhere, somehow, for us not to be all one, because it's easier. There's always this science says divide to conquer. So the best way to manage us or control us is through division. So they don't want us to be in harmony. But once we've had these experiences of selves and gone out there or felt who we are as, a spiritual being having this, human experience into this physical reality, life is so amazing. It's so beautiful. And it's the powers, the skills that we have as human beings are incredible. Look, we talked about breatharian, people are doing telekinesis. Yourself, you're a medium, you're a clairvoyant. There are so many people that have got this incredible skills, telepathic skills, um, this chi master that are able to emit energy from their body to another person to heal them, like all these things. And then you go, well, you got the dream walking state as well, when you can go into your dreams and see what's happening, in between the words. And you got people that do remote viewing. Remote viewing is incredible. It's been declassified in the late 1990s, and it was used by the military for over 40 years in the United States. And all the guys that have done that all their life, well, when they retired and remote viewing was declassified in the late 1990s, and they've only done this in the army, they started to teach remote viewing to others. We got a very famous guy in WA, who's an ex-US military, and he teaches remote viewing, and he's got incredible credentials. So remote viewing, being able to see anywhere in space whatever is happening right now, or being able to see whatever has happened in the past, at a certain time, or also being able to what they call remote influence. So being able to change or alter the course of history by, altering what's happening right now. So all the skills are incredible. To me, it goes beyond imagination. There is one frustration I've had as a kid growing up, is that I was told that fairies were existing, and Santa Claus was existing, and like all this, the little mouse that comes and picks up your teeth under your pillow and leaves money under that. All these things were fascinating when I was a kid. And then suddenly I was told, or I was told probably from my cousins before, because they were older, that it was not true. And when I learned that, I was a kid, I got so angry. I was like, how am I going to be able to trust the adults now if the most beautiful things they've told me that I'm believing in are not true? So now that I've grown up, I've gone through that stage. I've done a lot of, psychoanalysis about myself, and I've put some what we call strong suits on me, like protection. And one of the main protection I put on myself when I was a kid was like being independent, because I can't trust anymore into the adult world. But now that I know how the world is, at least probably just 1% of how it looks like to me, in this rich tapestry, I would say that it goes beyond imagination. It
Mm.
goes beyond fairies and Santa The skills that we have as human beings are incredible. What's happening in the quantum world regarding the fact that everything is connected, that there are different realities happening simultaneously, that we can jump into a reality by projecting our consciousness into this reality we could, that we can go back into past life to get skills that we've had in different incarnations to bring them back into this reality. What's happening into space with all these planets that are around us, and potentially galactic brothers and sisters out there. It goes beyond imagination, and all books written by humanity since the dawn of time. You cannot even fathom the
Yeah.
potential and the beauty of this world that we live in.
Yeah. And it is really, for me, understanding uh, in that quantum space, because that's where everything is possible. Right? That's if you want to call it, like if you want to keep it really simple, that's almost like that's where the building blocks are, even though there's not building blocks, but it's like that's where the thing happens. Uh, and so for someone to wrap their brain around this, if it's the first time they're kind of listening to it, is like, first of all, just understand particles, understand how they can be influenced. Start at baby steps. Right? So we're going to do baby steps first. Understand uh, the various experiments that have been done to demonstrate what we know to be true and even what we practice, intentions and manifesting and things like that, that it's not woo-woo, right? So understand that these things they can be quantified, and then go beyond that into that space where it's going to stretch your mind a little bit more. So if these are the first time you kind of hear this kind of conversation, go down a rabbit hole and just Google, some quantum experiments, and um, there'll be three or four that'll come up that are pretty dominant, and then try and understand them. Start there, is what I say. And once you wrap your brain around that, then you'll be able to then go in a bit further and then appreciate that we our limitation is just our humanness, really, what we think is possible. That's where the limits are. As far as when you are creating something from the starting point, which is in that quantum space, you can create anything, really, because that's where you start from. So it's really about what do you think you can create. It is this personal development and mindset that we have to be aware of, because that's where we're playing small. Uh, that's where things can hold us back. It's all in our mind and what we think is happening and what we think our reality is. And because whatever we think our reality is what it will be. And so it's just having that awareness around that you're creating your experience. And so if you don't like it, or it's not what you
Sorry, I think you dropped down there.
did. So I'm just going to continue and they can patch it together. So if you don't like your experience, and you don't know like what you think your life should be, then choose something else, because it is your intention is going to be part of what you experience. So it's about choosing something else rather than settling for what you're experiencing. I'm going to ask you another question before we kind of run out of time. Is um, if you had to tell your younger self, even though your younger self sounds really awesome, right? What kind of lesson do you wish that you knew sooner, or wisdom or advice that you would give yourself?
Look, when I had my first enlightening experience, um, I came back with everything is possible. So that will be the advice I'll give to myself as a kid. I was lucky enough to have my mom always telling me, when your mind cannot find the answers, listen to your heart. So I'm a very heart-centered person, and I know when the answer is right by asking my heart. But that lesson that I had from knowing and feeling, because it's two distinct things. The knowing is the mental understanding, and the feeling is very deep inside you that everything is possible. Yeah, that's what I will give that to any and all the kids in this world, for them to know that everything is possible. Don't be limited by your mind. Don't be limited by adults. Don't be limited by anyone, because everything that you want to achieve, you can. And it's just about you, and it was always about you, and will always be just only about you. And all the answers are inside of you. So that will definitely be the first advice I'll give myself and all the kids of this world.
Well, and what a great takeaway too for anyone that's a parent
That's
or
right.
going to be a parent. It's like what are my limiting beliefs that I'm putting on my child? How am I,
Mm,
the things that I haven't dealt with, that are still sitting within me, my fears, whatever they are, what am I projecting on my child? And not, we always sort of want them to be more. It's a common theme that you see all the time. But then we don't show up that way in the way
mm,
that we parent, or even if we're teachers,
mm,
we coaches for, sporting teams. So what are we doing with the young ones to restrict them?
mm,
Because they arrive with such wonder
mm,
and such belief, and they do, they do believe that anything is possible, and then we take it off them.
mm,
We actually take it off them. We have a whole lot of awesome reasons that we have told ourselves that is justified, but we take it off them.
mm,
And so, if you are a custodian of a young person in some form, catch yourself and go, one, what am I doing to them? But also, what am I doing to myself? Because you're also doing it to yourself, whether you realize it or not. So, great awareness does create the opportunity for great change.
mm. That's right.
And I've loved our chat. I could talk to you all day.
And likewise, it's fascinating.
Uh, wh- how could someone connect with you, and how could you serve and help them if they want to connect you? So, in regards to services or teachings or offerings that you have.
Look, so I've created my company called Living Light. It's living-light.love, 3w.living-light.love. And I do offer online training. I will be what you call an international health coach. So I do have clients in France. I do have clients in Australia. And what I am doing is that, throughout my understanding of what the life experience is, I divide my approach into four stages, which is the holistic approach of what I would say the life experience. So the first stage is, the spiritual body. The second stage is the emotional body. The third stage is the physical body. And the fourth stage is the mental body, and how to deal with each body to be able to live the best experience as a human being. So I do online coaching, and I'm doing so. All the services that I'm offering, essentially, I'm doing personal training. So I have a dedicated app where I put training workouts for people on a weekly, monthly basis. It comes with meal plans as well. And, I assess if they're doing good with the training, and it's a very nice, well done app. Um, I offer, nutrition advices as well, depending on, where they're from, what they do, what they like to eat, what they can't eat, their blood type as well. And then I do Qigong also training. I do meditation training. I do breath work training. And essentially, I put all of this into one package. Generally, my clients go for a 5 hours package, and I go through, the life coaching side of things and seeing where they are at and keep setting with them goals. And then I do a bit of training in Qigong, a bit of training in breath work, a bit training in meditation. And I put a meal plan for them, and I put an app dedicated for them for training if it is what they want to do. And essentially, that's how I do interact with my clients. I'm also doing workshops. I got two workshops coming in. I got one at the end of the month on Stradbroke Island for a festival called Love Fest, where I'm going to be teaching Qigong. So I'm specialized in medical Qigong. And then I got another event at the end of June, from the 19th to the 22nd of June, where I got two Chi masters coming from, one from Malaysia, the other one from Singapore, that are, in their 80s and can demonstrate incredible skills. But I've got one of the most amazing knowledge regarding Chi energy that I've ever seen. And they are, true living masters that move around the world to share the knowledge. And probably a few more workshops coming by the end of the year, but it's not certain yet. So that's essentially how people can, connect through
All
me.
on your website?
Everything is on my website,
Okay, great.
absolutely.
So I'm going to put
And
all your details in like below the video, so everyone will be able
yeah,
to find everything to connect with you, your services, and feel your energy, which I think is important for them to connect in that space. The For me, when I listen to what you offer, and I'm like, okay, who would be the person? And there'd be all kinds of people that would benefit from what you do. And it would be anyone that's just seeking health, right? So it could just be as simple as that. Um, but I also those that are seeking something deeper, something more, um, I'm going to call it spiritual clarity. If you're in a spiritual space and you're wanting, whether you are in it professionally or you're just stepping into it, baby steps in there, you're just beginning, and you want more spiritual clarity. This is as you said, it's four layers, like it's a multi-layered approach. And so those that are in that space would really benefit from connecting with you, because one of our challenges when we are in a spiritual journey is letting go of the baggage that has come through life, and you let go of it in a physical form through the body and health, but also through, those connections that are going to occur, even in those deep meditations or breath work. There's amazing moments that can occur in that space. And I would imagine that under your guidance, that would be definitely something that would show up pretty easily. So if
abs-
anyone sort of connects into those words in any way, then I encourage you strongly to connect with Emmanuel, whatever way you want.
Thank you very much, Bronwyn. And look, I will also say that we've covered some incredible, extraordinary topics today. But I've had, a session with you, a reading with you, and it felt amazing. And, I kept crying and my heart was feeling completely melted. And so it was amazing. So, in the same way, I would recommend anyone that is looking, for mediumship advices to go through you, because you're definitely an incredible medium, and it was a great pleasure to meet with you and do this session, and now doing these talks together and trying to shift a little bit the consciousness of people, agitated a little bit, and being here as guides as well, because there's so much changes happening on the planet at the moment. There is so much information coming out that are literally challenging all our belief. Some of us are here and we've been there for a long time waiting for this time to happen, to help you out, guys. Help everyone, because that's what we're here for, to go through this transition, bridge the gaps in knowledge from places to places, wherever and however we can, and doing this with our heart.
Yes. And I don't need to say anything after that. So thank you. Thank you
Thank
for
you.
your time and your wisdom. And as I said, if you feel drawn to Emmanuel, connect with him in any way. He's an awesome human.